Have you ever watched a relationship slowly fall apart without a single dramatic fight? No shouting, no betrayal, no clear moment where everything broke. Just a slow, quiet distance that grows over time. One day you realize something feels different. The warmth is gone. Conversations feel forced, and the connection that once felt natural now feels fragile. Here's the strange part. Most relationships don't end because of one big mistake. They end because of small behaviors repeated over time. Behaviors that seem harmless in the moment, but slowly erode trust, intimacy, and emotional safety. Psychologists often call this relationship erosion. Much like rust slowly weakening metal, these behaviors gradually damage the emotional foundation between two people. And the scary thing is, most of us don't even realize we're doing them. So today, let's explore 10 behaviors that secretly destroy relationships and why understanding them might completely change the way you see love. 1. Taking someone for granted. Think about this for a moment. In the beginning of a relationship, everything feels special. You appreciate every message, every moment together, every small gesture. But over time, familiarity sets in. The brain adapts. What once felt exciting becomes normal. Neuroscience shows that dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, is strongest during novelty. But as routines develop, appreciation often fades. And here's the danger. When someone feels taken for granted, they stop feeling valued. Not overnight, but slowly. Respect fades, emotional warmth fades, and eventually, effort fades too. 2. Constant criticism. Now here's something interesting. According to relationship researcher Dr. John Gottman, criticism is one of the biggest predictors of relationship failure. But criticism isn't the same as feedback. Feedback says, "This behavior hurt me." Criticism says, "There's something wrong with you." One attacks the problem, the other attacks the person. Over time, repeated criticism creates defensiveness, resentment, and emotional distance. And once that pattern starts, it becomes very difficult to reverse. 3. Emotional unavailability. Have you ever tried talking to someone who simply isn't there emotionally? They respond, they listen, but something feels distant. That's emotional unavailability. Psychologists link this behavior to avoidant attachment styles, where people unconsciously protect themselves by keeping emotional distance. The paradox is powerful. They might care deeply, but their fear of vulnerability prevents them from showing it. And when emotional connection disappears, relationships start feeling lonely, even when you're together. 4. Keeping score. Now here's a subtle one. Keeping score. You remember every mistake your partner made, every time they didn't text back, every favor you did that wasn't returned. At first, it feels like fairness, but in reality, it slowly turns love into a competition. Relationships thrive on generosity, not accounting. When both people start tracking who gives more, nobody wins, because intimacy cannot survive in a scoreboard mentality. 5. Avoiding difficult conversations. Think about how many problems start with silence. Something bothers you, but you don't say it. You avoid the conversation to keep the peace. But here's the paradox. Avoiding conflict doesn't protect relationships. It slowly poisons them. Unspoken frustrations build pressure over time, like air inside a sealed container, and eventually it explodes. Healthy relationships aren't conflict-free, they're conflict-aware. They handle difficult conversations instead of burying them. 6. Lack of appreciation. This one sounds simple, but its impact is enormous. Human brains are wired to respond to recognition. Appreciation activates reward circuits linked to dopamine and serotonin. In other words, feeling appreciated literally makes us happier. But when appreciation disappears, something changes. People begin to feel invisible, unnoticed, unimportant, and over time, emotional withdrawal begins.
Sometimes all it takes to keep a relationship alive is a simple phrase people forget to say: "I appreciate you." 7. Passive-aggressive behavior. Instead of expressing frustration directly, some people express it indirectly. Sarcasm, silent treatment, subtle guilt. Psychologists call this passive-aggressive communication, and while it avoids direct confrontation, it creates something worse: confusion. The other person feels tension but doesn't know why, and confusion is one of the fastest ways to erode emotional safety. Healthy relationships rely on clarity, not hidden hostility. 8. Prioritizing everything else. Now here's something many people struggle with. Life gets busy. Work, friends, phones, social media, responsibilities, and gradually the relationship becomes something you assume will always be there. But attention is emotional currency. Where your attention goes, connection follows. When someone constantly feels like they come second, third, or 10th in your priorities, the message becomes clear: they are not important, and relationships rarely survive long-term neglect. 9. Refusing to admit mistakes. Pride can quietly destroy connection. When someone refuses to admit they're wrong, the relationship becomes emotionally unsafe, because mistakes are inevitable, but accountability builds trust. Neuroscience shows that vulnerability activates areas of the brain linked to empathy and bonding. In other words, admitting mistakes actually strengthens relationships. But when pride replaces honesty, resentment replaces intimacy. 10. Emotional withdrawal. Finally, the most dangerous behavior of all: emotional withdrawal. Not fighting, not arguing, just slowly pulling away. Less conversation, less interest, less connection. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as stonewalling, another pattern identified in Gottman's relationship research. It's when one partner shuts down emotionally. And here's the heartbreaking truth: by the time emotional withdrawal appears, the relationship is already struggling deeply, because connection cannot survive in silence. Now here's the deeper insight behind all of this. None of these behaviors are dramatic. They're subtle, quiet, easy to ignore. But that's exactly why they're dangerous. Relationships rarely collapse because of one catastrophic event. They collapse because of hundreds of small emotional disconnections over time. Moments where appreciation wasn't expressed. Moments where vulnerability was avoided. Moments where attention went somewhere else. But here's the hopeful part. The same small moments that destroy relationships can also rebuild them. A small act of appreciation, a moment of honest conversation, a simple acknowledgement of someone's feelings. Because relationships are not defined by perfection, they're defined by awareness. So maybe the real question isn't what destroys relationships. Maybe the real question is this: what small behaviors are you repeating every day without realizing their impact? Think about that for a moment, because sometimes the smallest changes can completely transform the way we love and the way we're loved in return.